Pittsburgh Steeler fans, what is going on? This is Jeff Hartman, senior editor behind thesteelcurtain.com, and it's a Saturday, and you're probably not used to seeing me or hearing me or Dave Schofield, who's joining me, but this is a breaking news podcast. We decided to also put it out on Facebook and YouTube as the Steelers have hired former Dolphins head coach Brian Flores as defensive assistant. Before we get into all those, I want to bring in Dave Schofield. What's going on, Dave?
Not too much, Jeff. Just a little bit of a flurry of excitement there with some Steelers news coming through that at a time when you don't expect an awful lot of news. So it's great to have something to talk about.
Absolutely, and there's a lot to break down here. The Pittsburgh Steelers definitely fill a void on their coaching staff. When you think about Keith Butler leaves, they're going to have to hire a linebackers coach anyways. We had asked this question before, are they going to be replacing Terrell Austin's job as senior assistant? And it is. What is his official title, Dave?
All right. His official title is senior defensive assistant / linebackers.
Okay. I would assume that's outside linebackers because Jerry Olszewski's still on the staff as the inside linebackers coach. Am I right?
I would have said that. They didn't say outside linebackers, so maybe he'll have his hand a little bit in all of it. But we'll see.
Steeler fans just love it. Like, they're like, this is such a great hire. Like, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to the Steelers making any type of move and having the fan base vastly agree. But Dave, what do you think Flores brings to this position that is reason for excitement?
Okay. Lots of reason for excitement. The thing is, how much is he going to have an input with everything? Hopefully they understand who he is, where he's coming from, his coaching pedigree, his success along the way, and he actually gets a significant voice in the room. I know there was a number of people, myself included, as soon as he was fired in Miami, I was like, oh man, wouldn't that be a great defensive coordinator for the Steelers? Well, my first thought was, he'll be about 2 days without a job. Then we kind of know everything that went on. He wasn't hired a lot of places. Then there's the lawsuit. We'll probably get into that a little bit more. But then when the Steelers hired Terrell Austin, I was like, they never had a chance at Flores anyway. But to find out then he's coming in, basically, the Steelers took half of the title of Austin and half of the title of Butler and brought them together, because you were wondering, will they hire a linebackers coach? Are they going to hire another, special assistant to the defense? What are they going to do? And they did it all in one because they had a great person to be able to do that and fit exactly what it would have been to fill both of those roles.
Right, and something of note, now I do not think that this was in the Steelers' mind at all when they made the decision to bring him on, and this was something that Ken Cranston brought up in the live chat. He says, I'm all for the hire of Flores. I just hope he doesn't get leashed away after next season. Well, if he does,
that's fine.
The Steelers actually do receive some compensation in the form of, is it 2 third-round picks in consecutive years?
I think that's what it would be. Right. I'm pretty sure.
I do not think that the Steelers thought, okay, let's bring him on, and then I don't think that's the way they were thinking. They probably saw the opportunity. I guarantee you Mike Tomlin picked up the phone and said, look, if you don't think you're going to get a job somewhere, we have a job for you here. And he said, you know what, let's go with the Steelers. That's a top-notch organization. I'm sure we're going to hear from Brian Flores in some way, shape, or form in the coming days, just because he's such a big name, and we all know the news surrounding the lawsuit against the National Football League and stuff like that. Another talking point that's been discussed amongst the fan base, something Anthony Neal brought up in the live chat, and that is the only concern about some of these is the relationship with Minkah Fitzpatrick. Fans have to remember that he was the one that drafted Minkah Fitzpatrick out of Alabama. They did not necessarily coexist well, and Fitzpatrick eventually found his way to Pittsburgh. Dave, does that concern you at all?
The reason it does not, it's not that it doesn't concern me at all, but the reason it's not a huge concern is because who does Minkah Fitzpatrick totally love? Coach Terrell Austin.
Yes.
Who's higher on the hierarchy of Steelers defensive coaches? Defensive coordinator Terrell Austin.
Yes.
So to me, the way it seems like the Steelers have been working the last 2 years, we can't say for sure, but by every indication is that Keith Butler was the defensive coordinator by name, and kind of had that role as well. But Coach Austin was taking care of the secondary part, which was his specialty. Coach Butler was taking care of the defensive front more and the pass rush and everything, which was his specialty. And it worked well. I'm hoping this is the same kind of thing, but you're just now Austin's the DC, and you have someone like Brian Flores that's coming in to kind of take care of that whole, pass rush front seven, hopefully run good against the run defensive front of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right. And Minkah Fitzpatrick's beef, and I know this basically because I have a really good friend of mine who is a huge Dolphins fan. And I talked to him when the Steelers acquired him via trade, and he said that Fitzpatrick just didn't feel like he was being utilized to the best of his ability. They were putting him at slot cornerback. I mean, he played more reps at slot in his rookie year than he did in safety. He wanted to be a safety. The Steelers could bring him over. What do? You listen to Jeffrey Benedict. Yeah, you listen to Jeffrey Benedict. It was Terrell Austin that basically sculpted the secondary to suit his strengths.
Yeah.
And that's not going to change.
Yeah.
He's not going to, Flores is not going to have, like you said, the power or I don't even think he would have it wouldn't make any sense from a football standpoint to go in and try and change an all-pro player when he's an all-pro player and what he does best.
Yeah.
So it's definitely one of the situations. I do want to bring up Maddie Peverils in the live chat.
We were going to finish off with that for sure.
The touchdown under is still happening. This is just an extra podcast that we're going to do for the breaking news. This will also be able to be found on our audio platform, so make sure you check that out.
Yeah.
But Dave,
but Maddie P and Marky D, they're going to be breaking this down a lot. So make sure you don't miss that.
This is not going to be a long podcast. We're probably only going to be on it for about 15 minutes. But Dave, I want to ask you a question. I'm real big on knee-jerk reactions. You know this from games. We were actually sitting right next to each other coaching a 4th and 5th grade basketball game when our phones both blew up, and it was Michael Beck saying, "Oh my gosh, they just hired Flores." What was your first gut reaction when you saw it?
Honestly, I was ecstatic because I never thought that they could get that quality of a coach coming in that position. It just hasn't seemed to be working out that way. Steelers fans didn't like the lack of a big name for the offensive line coach hire or something like this. Here's your big name. Here's your big hire. It's just on the other side of the ball. Knee-jerk reaction was like, oh yeah, let's get this defense rolling.
Do you think that Flores had no other options out there at this stage of the game?
I don't know what's available in New England for him to go back there. Because for those that you might not be aware, should I give the rundown of where he's
do that now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he started off with the New England Patriots in 2004 as a scouting assistant. That he was there for 2 years, then 2 years as a pro scout. Then he came on the coaching staff in 2008 as a special teams assistant. Then he was in 2010 became an offensive assistant and the special teams coach. Then in 11 a defensive assistant. Then this is all with the Patriots. Then in 2012 to 2015 their safeties coach. 2016 to 2018 their linebackers coach. Before he left to be the head coach of the Miami Dolphins in 2019. He has 4 Super Bowls with the Patriots. I don't know what the Patriots coaching staff looks like right now if they would have had room to bring him back.
Let's also remember what happened with Bill Belichick and if Bill Belichick would want him back.
That's what I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. Well, the lawsuit was he shared a personal text message with Bill Belichick in the lawsuit. I would imagine that bridge might be burned. Personally.
Unless, for all we know, he checked with Coach Belichick to say, hey, he could have, hey, this is a thing. But yeah,
real quick, while you have that information in front of you, no years as a defensive coordinator?
No years as a defensive coordinator.
That's it.
He went straight from Patriots linebackers coach to head coach.
Wow.
But he did a good job as their head coach.
Absolutely.
I can't believe he was fired. Honestly, that was to me the most shocking firing of a head coach in the NFL this offseason.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what he brings to the table.
Exactly.
I think that I didn't know that he had never been a defensive coordinator. So a lot of people are saying DC and waiting. Well, this guy's never called defensive plays before. He might have had his fingerprints, as Mike Tomlin says, all over the defense, but in reality, he might have never called plays. So, it's definitely interesting. Do you think that See, this is all new to me. I had no idea he was never a coordinator before.
Yeah.
I thought for sure he was the defensive coordinator for the Patriots before he
No.
was hired by the Dolphins. But that's fine. Let's go in a different direction. In terms of Mike Tomlin, you don't think there's any hesitation that he and the Rooneys brought him in, do you?
What do you mean there, Jefferson?
I mean, well, let's be honest. This guy has put himself front and center in the NFL landscape, and let's be honest, from an organizational standpoint, in the wrong way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of organizations that probably said we don't want anything to do with this guy because they might think he's bad news. I don't know. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But do you think there was any hesitation within the Steelers to say,
No.
Are we sure we want to do this? You don't think so?
I don't. Because to me, I think what they're saying is, hey, I mean, come on. If we're talking about the Rooney Rule, it's the Rooney Rule. Remember who it's named after. That if there's someone who's having a problem with that thing, there's no reason for the Pittsburgh Steelers to say, oh, well, this is going on, I don't know if we want to touch that, or saying, hey, we have an opportunity to hire a really good coach. That should be your thinking. And now we have Brian Flores working with Mike Tomlin, working with Terrell Austin. I mean, there should be, to me, it makes so much sense for Brian Flores to take this job. This is a great opportunity to stay in the NFL as part of this organization in the role that he can be in there. And if he still wants to, because when he brought this lawsuit, he knew there was the opportunity he might not ever get to coach again in the NFL, but felt it was important. He made that statement, felt it was important to speak up. So the fact that he can still have a place coaching, I'm really happy that he has one.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. And do you think this round outs the Steelers coaching staff now? Or do you think they still have to fill a couple roles? They have assistant offensive line coach.
They should hire an assistant offensive line coach.
Other than that, though, is the defensive staff done?
Yeah, yes.
Unless they want to bring in another secondary coach.
Coach Austin, if Coach Austin's going to have a special defensive assistant, then that still allows him to then keep his hands in with the secondary as well. If they weren't going to hire the defensive assistant like he was, then they would have needed to hire someone else to help with the secondary, in my opinion. They still could, but I don't know that they will.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, all right, let's wrap this up. I didn't want to go beyond 15 minutes. Dave, when your final thoughts on this decision to bring in Brian Flores, what is it?
Final thoughts.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's quote defensive captain Cam Hayward. Okay. This is, to me, Cam speaks so much for the team. This is courtesy of Brooke Pryor of ESPN. She tweeted this of a quote that she got from Cam Hayward and said, this is about Coach Flores. He's a premier coach who had a pretty good defense in Miami. Looking forward to working with him and helping us all grow. To me, if that is how every Steelers fan and every Steelers player should view this hire right there. I like it. The Steelers, for people that complain that the Steelers, they're cheap. They won't hire high quality assistants. This kind of rests that narrative right there.
Yeah, for me, I think that this is a move that the Steelers made that I didn't really see them making. Not Flores, but I didn't see them necessarily trying to find and fill that void with one coach. If you know what if that makes sense. Keith Butler's absence was going to be felt along the defensive front. In terms of setting up the blitzes and getting after the quarterback, what the Steelers have been synonymous with under Butler. That Terrell Austin can coach up the secondary. Are you going to replace that defensive assistant? I thought that was going to be a couple hires. Turns out they did it in one guy. And let's hope that
did it well, in my opinion.
Let's hope the results speak for themselves.
Yes.
Those that are trying to read into it a little bit more, that are saying, what about the future? Look, they're going to have this guy for 2022. They're looking to build a championship team, a championship level defense. And I think they took a big step in the right direction with this hire. So, all right, folks, that's it. Make sure you check out the Touchdown Under podcast live on YouTube. That'll be this afternoon here on the East Coast. And then also on our podcast platform, you can hear all of these shows on audio only. That's my Let's Ride podcast, Dave Stat Geek, Michael's, the live mic. You have all of our noon shows. There's so much more than just our YouTube channel. So wherever you get your podcasts, or Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain, those terms will give you our podcast platform. Make sure you subscribe and follow whatever you have to do. And then, as always, BehindTheSteelCurtain.com should be your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Thanks for checking this out. We will see you next time. Steelers hire Flores. Shock the world for a little bit. Take it easy, everyone. We'll see you.
Go Steelers.